A very warm welcome to Rewire Talks in association with Dubai Cares, the new global platform on education. Myself, Divya Sanechere, who will be the host for this session of Rewire Talks. And I have a total experience of 12 years, wherein I have served in areas of teaching in both national and international universities and in UK curriculum schools. And I have also worked in areas of administration, sales, and insurance. Right now, I'm with Adina Education and working as a secondary teacher for business. Thanks to Dr. Raghu Pradeep Nair, who is present with us on Rewired platform to share his expertise in reshaping the education with his experience of 26 years. He is a great expert who served in areas of teaching, training, industries, and in legal domain, being an advocate and a trainer himself. Now, I would like you to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Divya. Thank you for this opportunity to be part of Rewired initiative. And it's a great opportunity. So I'm working as a senior soft skills trainer and faculty L&D in Amrita Vishwa Vidyapeetham, Coimbatore. I'm dealing with training of postgraduate students who actually undergo the courses in our university, helping them to get placed in corporates. So that is the focus area where I have been working for the last many years. Apart from that, I have, as you have mentioned, I've worked in academics as in management colleges. So I have been very passionate about teaching youngsters, helping them grow, coaching, mentoring, and training them. So I think this is a great avenue here I've got where I can share my ideas and learn in the process about the future of education that is going to be or opened up in the coming days. So thank you for this great opportunity, and thank you for being a host in this particular interview process. Thank you.
That's such a kind words and being so humble that you are open for learning. And I think we would go away into our discussion. What do you think as a true purpose and role of education?
Yes, Divya, very important question. We all think about this, and what I understand is the true purpose of education is to create adaptable students who can quickly adapt to the changes that are going around in the world, in the surroundings in which they are. So that is the true purpose. So whatever maybe the level of education, ultimately it is basically to make students adapt to changes, and that is what we are seeing, and whatever we are also experiencing is that training of long yesterdays, which have now also come back and supporting us and helping us to make this transition, post-COVID scenario, where we have quickly and the resilience that we teachers have shown to learn new things, new technology, and we are using it for the benefit of our students. Apart from that, the purpose of education is to bring about enlightened citizens, who will be contributing to the society in which they are, instill the moral values which are very important for them. Apart from that, yes, we have the economic side of education, which actually helps in economic wealth generation, which is again a very important purpose of education. Then social sustainability is brought about by education, character building, discipline, you name it, so many things. Okay, so education is all about change and building character. So I think many are the purposes of education, but again I'll stick back to this, that we have to be adaptable. Flexibility, education makes us more flexible to handle the day-to-day affairs of our lives.
That's amazing to hear from you, and very thoughtful insights. So along with this, I think I would add my perspective on how I look at education. Regardless of age, all the people or individuals should have an opportunity to understand their own capacities to serve for their benefits and for the society at large, with considering the impacts of sustainable development linked with the real life. So this is what I think the true education should look into. So can we move on with the next question?
Sure.
What if there is no jobs and what should we educate for?
Yes, very interesting. If there are no jobs, why educate? But actually, the real motive of education is not jobs. That is what I feel like to mention, because jobs may be one of the byproducts of good education. But as we have already discussed, education has many other dimensions to it. So if no jobs are there, still education will help us to be self-employed. Education will help us to build that entrepreneurial skills which are required to sustain ourselves. And we can just imagine, we can go back and into times, and we can find that there were not so many jobs in the past, but now we have more jobs. But still, at that time also, education was always there to help people to innovate, to help people to think creatively. So education's purpose is far beyond merely getting a job somewhere in a corporate scenario. So that is what I think. Education beyond that gives creativity, vision, and we have some motivation to go forward in life. So I think education's role is more holistic than merely preparing somebody for the job. But yes, it also plays a role in getting a job. That is what I feel.
As truly told, education itself is a building of an holistic approach along with sustainability and entrepreneurship. So I agree that I want to mention a small incident where I would really look into that in this way. So when I was young, I would always used to ask my adults that why should I learn the subjects which I don't want to learn actually. So they would always say, yeah, we have to, when you grow up, you have to be on your own and you have to look after family and yourself. That is why your education is truly for. But I think in building the um, young minds is very important as adults, and we have to be a little more responsible for. Like instead of telling that you need to look for a job, I think the more specific answer they should have given is you should make a job. You should create a job which is linked with your passion and which you are good in with your developing the skills with the education can bring about, and then thereby building a future generation to contribute for a sustainable development. So this is what I think, rather than just only focusing on jobs, searching for jobs, it should be a job creation. So the curriculum content and everything related should upgrade as per the job creation. There should be more involvement of innovation for that, even inside the curriculum. And there should be opportunities for the students to get accustomed with the innovation. All right. So the next question is, how do we ensure that the digital learning leaves no student behind?
Divya, this is a very good question that you have asked, and this is a real challenge that we have faced, and I am facing on almost the last 1 year. This has been the part of our discussions, internal discussions and debates, how to ensure that everybody is brought into this digital learning thing. Various challenges are there, but yes, institution side and teacher side, yes, we have to upgrade ourselves, our technology, we have to have that. And our institutions do invest in such things in a big way. So as such, we don't have that issue much coming up. But yes, infrastructure, the bigger infrastructure, which cannot be supported entirely by institutions, these have to be done by the governments of that particular country, which they have to ensure that people get the broadband connectivity, they get, because online learning is entirely on through internet. So those infrastructure that is required, the speed, the connectivity issues. Now, all these things are because nobody expected such a disruption from pandemic situation. So, but things are picking up. People have understood it. Governments have understood it, and they are investing. And especially in India, also a lot of changes have happened, and the connectivity issues are also being taken care of. But it will take time. It will take maybe because of the various reasons that you can see, political, economic, and social reasons. It will take its own time. Apart from that, what I would say is that the financial support for the students, financial support, soft loans, the financial institutions who give education loans, they should also give loans for students to say buy a laptop or maybe smartphones, which are upgraded versions, which can actually support many of the softwares, because we use many softwares. In the last 1 year, a lot of upgradation has happened. Learning management systems have been introduced. Some softwares will not be compatible with the existing systems, so you have to invest a lot. I have invested a lot in the last 6 to 7 months. As a teacher, I had to invest a lot on these technologies because my systems were themselves obsolete. So I had to bring on now. There are teachers who may not be able to afford that in a short period of time, and of course students are also there in such categories. So they have to be identified. They have to be given the right technology, so that this makeover or change to online learning can be more seamlessly achieved. Okay, so that is the thing. So I think these are the three important areas. Government has to tremendously involve in this. Private partnership with government is very important. Government can give the infrastructure, etc. But private people, they have the expertise, they have the they have the knowledge with them, so they can involve very positively here. Apart from that, the institutions themselves have to invest a lot to ensure that these technologies are quickly adapted into their systems, and their staff and their teachers are well trained in these areas. Apart from that, the financial institutions, they have to give loans, soft loans, so that quickly this transition can happen, and maybe in 1 or 2 years, things can all be normalized. So that is what I feel regarding this people, who are left behind as far as technology and learning is concerned. This is how we can intervene, I think.
This is truly a wonderful insight, I feel. And apart from this, these are all things which is connected to government, teachers, facility, and all that. In UAE, the condition is far more better because all the teachers have got their own work laptops. They have got their gadgets. And the students, even from the government side, those students who have difficulty in the internet connectivity, even that was being intervened by the government to support the students who are studying to get the internet connectivity from the
here also, actually, in India also a lot of India also a lot of support is there, but because of the huge
the population and the people
demographics, demographics.
Yes.
So that is
the economy in supporting the government support is huge. The only thing I think they're waiting for the suggestions and insights from us so that they can improve.
Exactly.
And apart from this, as a teacher, when this question is asked, I feel there are cases. It is true that even one aspect is whether they are able to access the gadgets and whether they are able to have internet connectivity to learn on digital platform. But the other perspective to this is that whether they are truly engaging in the lessons. Because yes, from an on-site teaching and learning to an online teaching and learning, the teacher and the student connectivity is limited to the screens. I sit behind, you sit behind, and especially the real way of teaching and learning, the students, I have seen the tendency that the students would come up with excuses on not switching on their camera. So we are limited to the limit where we can see them through the digital platform. As you know, this generation love gaming.
Yes.
There are certain limitations and challenges for teachers also to monitor the whole class, whether each and every student is learning in actual.
Yes, yes, yes.
And I think the exit card strategies and involvement of parents also can, to an extent, solve this issue.
Yes, yes, yes. Very good.
So,
Yeah. Similarly, yeah. We also face this, though we tackle higher level, PG level of students. So they do a lot of multitasking.
yeah.
It's a big challenge. It is a big challenge. Even examinations, when you conduct, chances of certain practices, malpractices are there. That is also a challenge. But in many places now, softwares are now available which can help you to proctor
Yeah.
examination.
They're getting upgraded actually. They need,
they are getting
it's a matter of time that the
yes.
technology can get find a solution for all this.
Yeah, it will be. I think I'm very optimistic about this because
Yes.
things are changing very fast. And
Yeah.
I think this is the best time for education to grow because it's a revolution. I think L&D, learning and development revolution, because we are in L&D.
Yeah.
So we look at this. Normally, if you look at organizations, they're not very happy about L&Ds, because they don't want to have big budgets for learning and development, etc. HR practices. They actually try to keep it, secondary to many other functions like marketing and finance. But now is the golden era. L&D, and now a lot of concern about L&D and how teaching has to be delivered in organizations. I'm not talking about educational institutions. In organizations also, this awareness has come, and that's why. And this pandemic, though it is a negative thing, it has its positivity can be seen in learning and development at least.
Exactly. So on like I'm sitting in UAE and you are in India, and we are able to talk each other in this
Yes.
Rewired session itself as a proof of that. So
Yeah, of course.
yeah.
Yeah.
And added to that, as you told, this revolution is going to happen in education. It's not that, and there is one point which I think the people are till now reluctant to change the education
Yes.
system from grading and all that. So
Yes.
now a force from all the parties or the stakeholders have come together in such a way that there should be a change in the global education, connecting
Yes.
countries all over the world.
Very true.
We'll
Very true.
move on to the next question.
Yes.
This is the most favorite question of mine, which I would also like to discuss. So the question goes like this: what would make people uncomfortable to do within the education sector, but would help shift the paradigm of education?
Okay, so we will take the present scenario only. What makes people or teachers uncomfortable in the education sector? Because that is the thing. One thing is that because of this change, as you have rightly just mentioned just a few points before, that the change, to adapt to the new thing. Even teachers find it a little reluctant sometimes to do that, because you have to learn new softwares, you have to learn a new way of delivering. And when we were delivering training, the classroom scenario, the materials, the resources that we were giving to the students at that time, we had to totally drastically change that. When it came to the online platform. Now, that is huge work. It is not an easy task, because the entire course, we could not just put it on the online platform just like that. We had to again think about this. And the real challenge was that how to make it more engaging for the students, because we were mindful of the fact that there is something called Zoom, what is that? Fatigue, Zoom fatigue. Okay, so that is the thing. And the attention span of the students is very less, because they have, if you see from morning 9 to 5, they're totally in front of, as you were mentioning, in front of the screen, and we had to factor all those things. So how to redesign, because instructional design is a very important part of our education. So how to redesign the entire course, course modules which were being used, delivered in the normal classroom setting to the online platform. We use MS Teams, not Zoom. So how to do that? How to create new assignments? How to create new activities so that during that 1 hour time when we are engaging them, they should have the concepts delivered to them. They have to have the activities so that we can keep them engaged, and it should be learning by doing. All those things, learning by doing is most important. So all these things we had to factor. So that is a big challenge. And it is very tough, and many people would have been disappointed about that, and many people have confessed also that they would prefer to go back to the classroom style of teaching given an opportunity as early as possible, because of this change and this transition, which has to be brought in. And that is one important thing any teacher should learn, that we as teachers should be lifelong learners. If you want to teach students, I should also become a student. Then only I can learn. So it is not a one-way traffic. We have to learn ourselves, and this is important, and this is difficult. But as you said, this question is pointing to will make that change. The dimension of education can only be changed by such adaptation to technology, because the technology is going to be there. Okay, so that is one important thing that we have to keep in mind when we are engaging with students. So that is what I think. We have to adapt to technology. We have to implement technology. It is difficult. Evaluation processes become difficult, but then the new normal, we have to accept it, and we also have to change accordingly, because our ultimate interest is in the learner, how best we can deliver to the learner. And we also, some trial and error is always there. We learn like that, but gradually, last 1 year we also made a lot of mistakes. We did something, then we found that it is not working, so we had to change it. We have to again put it back in a different way, and it started working. So a lot of experiments, a lot of rework had to be done. You can say it is administrative sometimes, but then these are required, because the teaching profession is such a profession where we will have to find innovative ways of delivering our resources, our courseware. We will have to find, out of the box ideas to connect with the students. So these are challenges, but again, these challenges, though they seem difficult, they are ultimately going to be fruitful. That's what I think.
So this is the exact first point which I would like to deliver. Whatever you told is absolutely right, and I do agree with it. Apart from this, I would like to mention about two, which is maybe truly revolutionary when I speak, or maybe I don't know how far or this can be understood. The most uncomfortable change which I feel, which the people would have, and the people who developing the curriculum would be having, and the schools and universities, students and teachers would be having, is the curriculum content updation, or if at universities, it's the syllabus updation.
Yes.
So although in the curriculum content, we know that they are building a curriculum on the specific skills requirement, like interpersonal, intrapersonal, transparency, literacy, numeracy skills. Even though all these are a part of curriculum developing, and even the real life aspect is also linked to along with it. But in real life, as a teacher, I think the students are much more deserving than this. And this change can only be brought about with a proper change in the education system. See, as you told, relevantly told the point that the technology changed, the teaching methods changed. Because of all that, what's happening is that we need to adapt. The teachers need to adapt, the students need to adapt, the parents need to adapt. Even parents would also have a difficulty in leaving their kids at home and go for the job. So all these are the people who is really getting challenged. So why can when we have a need to change the whole system, and we are in the process of changing the whole system of education, why can't we also change the curriculum content to the present situation? Not
Yes, very true.
waiting for the procedures and rules. Why can't we do it now? And
Yes.
I would want to explain it with an example so that it is clearly understood. See, I think this example would be one which everyone would be, it is easy for everyone to understand. If we are considering a topic in HR, that is recruitment and selection, if I'm teaching my students on that topic, I have did it in this way where I have asked them, like with their contributions, we were planning to do a mock interview. So that is how I wanted to teach them. I want to link it with the real life, with the present procedures and set of rules we are into in schools and universities. So I designed a mock interview where I divided them into groups, and one group will act as a panelist and another group will be acting as interviewers. And the audience set also will be watching them. And I'll be also a person there. If I have planned like that, and also a proper rubrics is also being developed where I will be giving them the feedback. The interviewers will be giving them the feedback about the panelists, and the panelists would be giving the feedback to interviews, and audience will also give the feedback to the panelists and the interviewers and students. So like an outside person, any person who is observing this lesson would say this is a very good lesson or outstanding lesson. Why? Because the students are fully engaged, they are learning
Right.
something which is linked with their real life, and they are also getting effective feedback for the improvements. But as a teacher, I think this is limited uh, to the students' experience, the real experience. I wanted to shift this real life context learning, or to be accurate, this projected real life experience, real life context learning to a sustainable real life experience. In order to
Yes.
make it sustainable real life experience, I could have conducted in this way if as a teacher, I had an opportunity to connect with industries. So what the students get here in this mock interview is limited to the knowledge I have as a teacher. Is limited to the knowledge the students will be able to give them the feedback. To the school or to the universities, they are very happy about it. It might be an outstanding lesson, but if a teacher is getting an opportunity to connect with the industry, even if it's a public or government companies or the private companies, which is adaptable to the positions each of these students apply. So for mock interview to be conducted, they need to make CVs. So CVs, I told them to make it based on the positions each of them wish to
Yeah.
come. Yeah. So if I could have connected their positions, I could have act as a moderator in between the students and the industry, where I can take the CVs of them and I can submit it with the industrial people relevant to the industries they have applied, and with the proper job description from their side and the requirement of skills from their side. I could have
Yes.
the students would have got an opportunity to have a real stressed, or we say the real environment where online interview can be done from the industry,
Yes.
and it's not
Yes. Yes.
me or from the students, so that the students will get to know what the real feedback, the real feedback on the skills, the talents, and what they expect from the industry directly, and it is not just limited to my knowledge or the students' knowledge or the school
Very,
knowledge.
very true. Very
Yeah,
true.
if this is the real life context link I would look into as a teacher, to connect the students and to give, to be justifiable with the students, and they have got full rights to get that done from
Yes.
whichever government they would come up with this. That'll be very, very helpful for the education, so that the students would be in a real sustainable environment. Sustainability, when we talk about, it's about the environment, it about the critical issues in the presently in the environment. So we can
Very,
give them a real experience where they will understand, and through the feedback of the industrial people, the companies, they can get what skills need to be developed, what skills they have to learn more for it, and what can be their abilities and how better they can be when they are out of the higher secondary school or university. So if this type, so this is what I meant by, even though we feel that we are linking it with the real life context, we are actually not doing it. We are just mocking the environment. If we can give them the real environment like this, which I told, a shift of real life, a fake real life context linked with education relevant to the topics, to a sustainable real life experience, this change can be possible, and that would benefit the education system and the schools and students too much. And they would be thinking the real life aspect, and they will have that interest to learn when they know real what is happening. So if, for example, I would say if a student is learning a science subject or specializing in science, let them be connected with a scientist of that country or any countries with the schools can establish a connection with. And for this, a government approval is required. For this, a government needs to bring in a policy where it should be a mandatory for all the schools and universities to connect with the companies. And as a social responsibility from the, we always talk about social responsibility of business and all that, but nothing is done. If this can be done, if a department as research and development, if they can open up a department for sustainable education, though those departments would be the moderators to act between the schools and the universities to bring about this change, so that the students will get benefited. That's the one thing. The second change which I would be looking forward is to eradicate the grading system. Why? Because always it's very true that assessment is very important part of education. I do agree it. But really when we look into how much ever we say we should not grade a student or they should not feel bad. Of course, in a set of 60 students in classroom or 30 students in classroom, they know exactly where they stand. Because there are a set of students who are very studious, there are a set of students who are very lazy, and they know their capabilities and they say, it's okay, it's fine, I don't want to learn more. I'm like this and letting me be like. Because others are judging him in that way. Even if that student wants to come up, they're not able to come up. So this disparity using this grading system should be eradicated. And as a digital technology, everything is prospering, why can't the subjects being just converted as gaming? That's my suggestion. I don't know how far it will be, but then why can't, like, for example, if I take the business subject, let that business subject be as an app inside the school, where they, when they go and click on that app, the full subject is divided into different levels from say 1 to 50, or as per the units 1 to 5. And for each task, the students from getting from one level to second level, like similar to gaming, they want to finish off the task provided there. They want to, if they, the task is related to industry, let the teacher take the initiative to connect it with the industry people. So why can't we change that system of grading itself, and why can't we just make it gaming so that it's interesting for the students and they will be more interested? And along with this, we are giving more and more importance to writing, reading, and education ultimately, because it's all written exams. Now it's online exam, but it's all based on the knowledge and the capacity of the students to think. But I would suggest only 30% of weightage should be provided to the students for writing skills, reading skills, and all the skills being assessed. Let the students get 70% of weightage for the innovation and creativity of that particular subject which they are interested in. As an answer. So that is a change which I would look into, so that instead of stressing on completing the exam, passing the exam, they would have an opportunity to connect their passion with the creativity, so that they will start thinking. If we go on keeping them stressed on marks, grades, no, they don't have time to think. Actually, you can imagine the digital, after we have a discussion like this, how much we'll be tired. So after that, they don't have time to write and read an assignment. It should be in a way that they should be creating and thinking something related to the task. And the weightage should be given for innovation and creativity more than the writing and reading skills. If this change can be brought by the government, of course, the students' perspective, the interest, and more of future sustainable generations can be built on who thinks rather than who by hearts everything.
Exactly. So I think a lot of very interesting points you have mentioned, Divya, and I would like to support some of them in a different way, because first you were mentioning about how the activities, the example that you gave about interviews, how it can be, it can be more connected to the organizations themselves and the students. Ultimately, the thing is that there should be more partnership between educational institutions and organizations. Now, one thing we experience is that organizations are not very keen about that. Because of their so definitely governments can be facilitators in such a partnership. Some regulations can be there where such partnerships are done. It is done at the higher levels because where you have articleships and where you can go to the organizations, but school level and all such experiments have not been tried so far, but it can be tried, as you mentioned, that it can be more practice and practical exposure can be given to the students and industry. Now again, this partnership is difficulty has been always a challenge, even for curriculum development. This interaction has to be there, because I was recently reading a report by McKinsey Global Institute, where they had studied around 750 occupations. In those 750 occupations, what they found is that almost 51% of the activities require automation. This is what they found. So out of these occupations, 750 occupations with McKinsey studied, they found that almost 51% of occupations will require automation coming up in the coming days, because of artificial intelligence, because of machine learning and all those things. And if you look at our curriculum, they have no connection with that, because there will not be any job. Many of the, let me tell you, accountancy job, after a point of time, accountants will not have a job because these things will be done easily by artificial intelligence or all those technology. So this interaction between academics and industry has to start as early as possible, so that industry can tell academics that this is what we want. You might be teaching 120 other things, but this is what we want. If a student is coming for us for a job, we are looking for this. Do you have that in the syllabus? You please give that in the syllabus. At least you can do other things, but you should give some stress to the vocational growth that that particular student needs to have. So that connection, as you have rightly pointed out, is missing. And definitely government, the institutions and the organizations or industry, they should actually work in tandem. They should work together to develop the curriculum. That is one important thing that you have mentioned. The second thing that you were mentioning, I think, can you please recollect, because I forgot.
Gaming, like the why we have to
gaming, yes.
grading and
yes
them.
grading, exactly, excellent thing. But I will not completely agree with what you said, because I know I will not agree completely, but I would say that grading is important. Grading is important in the sense that a student gets they get a feedback about where they stand, or the teachers will have a way to assess where a particular student stands. But I would not say that that should be the only way a student should be assessed. I would say that personal feedbacks are also equally important. They are actually not equally, they are more important. So students should be given personal feedback. So at the personal level, there should be a method that allows the student to have a personal feedback, so that he understands where he wants to improve. So that comparison, the things against grading, when I did a lot of research on this, what I found is that one thing is that when you have grading, the problem is people become risk averse.
So risk aversion is increasing because you don't take chances. You don't, because you are studying for that mark, etc. So you are actually somehow trying to get that. And studies show that such people, who are just focusing on grading, they will be risk averse. So they are not ready to take risks. Ultimately, we learn from errors and mistakes. Now they are not ready for that. So that is a problem which these people will face. Another thing which I found is that because of my own experience with this placement and industry people, I have understood now that they don't give so much weightage regarding grades.
Yeah.
They are not only looking at grades, because nowadays grades are there. It is actually most of the students who come there, they have sufficiently good grades. Actually, we might envy them now, but I will always envy people with more grades, because I was never having so many grades, and you also know that. The thing is this, that industry is not very much particular about grades. They are more interested in the other side of the candidate, say for example, the soft skills of the candidate, how he is communicating, how he is interacting, does he have the ability to work in team? All these abilities are also required. So merely focusing on grade or getting fixated by grades is actually not okay. But still, that system is there. It has been learned for a long period of time. And I think there are certain good aspects also, like some categorization can be possible when it comes to competitive examinations and all. Some categorizations can be possible, but ultimately you cannot judge a child based only on the grades. So we should be able to give feedbacks to the child. Apart from that, we should be able to tell the child that there are other skills that they have to simultaneously improve if they really want to be part of the, get over the competition and all. So I think many other aspects are also there. So I will not take a drastic decision like what you took, that you ban or abolish grades. I will not do
Yes,
that, but
for
still,
me, I like, yeah, sorry. For me, I would take the grade sheet not on my marks. I should be seeing my skills, which the
yes,
industry people is
yes,
looking into. That is a change
yes,
I want in grading.
yes,
I
yes.
don't
That
want
is what.
marks on my grade sheet. I don't want my points on my grade sheet. Rather, I want my skills, which I possess through
Yes,
my own
ultimately your
creativity.
competency. Very good. Yes, the competencies are more
Yeah.
important, and that
And
is what
along,
we.
when we are changing the system into this mode of
Yeah.
education, the students studying the higher grades and in universities, they should be getting an experience certificate along with the grade. That is the
That is.
way of education I look into. So
Yeah.
we all know that when we are a new graduate, when we are finding a job, we used to wander here and we cannot even find a fresher opportunity. Is it not?
True.
They all want grades. So only those people who is having influence uh, surely will get some plays into. So that needs to get changed. That discrimination of
Yes.
power, influence, all that needs to change. For that, the only method is to take away the grades and give focus on the skills they want to develop.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Very
grading
true.
should
Very true.
contain not the grades, it should contain the skills level they are in,
The abilities
rather
and
than,
all.
so that they get the grade sheet along with the experience certificate of say 1 year or how much ever
Very true. Very true.
as per
Very
the
true.
policy, so that
Huh.
when they are there are no freshers, they'll be experienced.
Mhm.
This is a change.
Very good. Very. Yeah. Yeah. Very innovative way of showing that. It's very good. Actually, very correct. What you are saying.
Because
They should have.
we have suffered a lot. Like
Yeah.
as a student, after our postgraduate, when we go for MBA, then after that, when we went into the industrial interviews, real interviews, what we face is there are certain things which they do which we not even have heard about. So this is the gap between the curriculum
Actually, now, no, no,
and
no, no. Actually, now, yeah, yeah. Industry has actually understood this, and nowadays, because here internships are there, and now something called micro internships have also been introduced, where actually these people, who have just you are
who have just finished their graduation or about to finish their PG, they can go and finish some projects like that to gain such experiences. They are trying
This is
to
the
chip
point
in.
which I would also want to mention, that internships are there, case studies solving is there, projects are there, main projects and mini projects are there. But why, instead of all this, my what I suggest is, when we have given 70% weightage for this innovation and creativity, let the students go to the industry and get connected with the industry people through the teacher as a moderator, and let them find a case. It's not that they get a case to solve, let them find a case in that specific industry as per the set of rules and procedures of that industry. And instead of doing a mini project, why can't they go and get an experience there? It's not the mini project that time that
projects
outdated, more than outdated. Instead of that, we should give them an experience certificate.
Experience internships are actually
so this concept, rather than solving a case study, let them find the case study. That is the level of change I think.
Yes. In management colleges, we used to do case writing. So the students would go to some industry and they will actually write a case about a particular that you were mentioning. So that's a great idea.
And we are more talking on business subjects, but as a science focused subject, engineering student, let them have opportunity to link with the global architecture, civil engineers, all that. So when they are learning engineering and civil, let them get connected with the people who are working abroad.
Real people who are really working.
So that they get to know, this is the done, and the book
this is what it is.
More
very true
behind.
Yes.
So much of papers they have to write for engineering. So why can't they be focused on particular
very
requirements they are into, and not so much of just bookish and written exams?
Very true.
Because basic knowledge everyone I think have. They can. Everyone is capable to learn something, at least not by reading. Maybe by someone is also reading for them on behalf. So all it is possible. Not knowledge is now a trend, like almost it's common.
It's available.
It's common. And the degrees are common. But how the degree can be
applied,
provided by a value add on it. This change in system. That is
very true.
Great. So I think we'll move on to the next question.
Please.
Discuss.
Please.
Okay. Who is or was your most inspiring teacher and why?
Okay. So actually, I will not pinpoint a particular person, because I take a very holistic view of this particular question that you have asked. Who has really inspired me? I would say many teachers, because we have such a long education experience and history that so many teachers have come by. Some maybe they would not have conveyed a particular subject in the way I would have wanted it, but still it was definitely a learning which they had given. Some would have really been inspiring. The thing is that the real inspiration I definitely got when a teacher motivated me. When I was unable to do something, the teacher had the patience to listen to what I wanted to understand. Now, some teachers were there like that, because I don't want to mention anybody by name, but the thing is that there were teachers like that who supported. Maybe I was not very bright in mathematics and all, so the patience they showed to understand me and give me that support required at that point of time, or listen to me, or encourage me to participate in some activities. There were situations where internal some teachers never, they had some favorite students maybe there. They would encourage them to participate more in events and more in activities. I also had my share of such teachers
I also had the other group also who never tried to push me into these activities, etc. So wherever I found a teacher who encouraged me, who supported me to participate in all these extracurricular activities, who stood by me, whenever I made a mistake at the time of my studies, etc., who stood by me. I think they were the real inspiration to me. But I will not forget my parents, who were the first teachers, because we all have our parents. So that's the thing. The way we look at teachers, when you look at teaching as a job, then it is a job only. But if you look at everything that has taught you something, you can see teachers everywhere. So parents are our real teachers who gave us those initial guidelines with which actually we entered into the world and we started interacting. We saw them, we observed them, and that really helped. We learned from them. I've also seen students have been my teachers. So that is another aspect. So they have inspired, and I know situations where students have reverse mentored me. When it comes to technology, I've learned many things last 2 years,
true.
3 years. Yeah. Because students, many of these students are more technology savvy than I am. So in that situation, I had the opportunity to interact with these students, and they have actually reverse mentored me and taught me many things about. So I would say that who inspired means the thing is this, that from wherever you have got information, those who had really supported you in that, all those people have really inspired you to be in this particular position where we are interacting. So I think that is what I would say, that is the thing. Many teachers have inspired many younger people who are not in the conventional sense teachers. They have actually taught so many things. So I would go that way. I would take a very broad view and say that a lot of people have really supported and inspired my learning. And now also they are doing. In the university, wherever we are working, there are also a lot of colleagues. They give us a lot of inputs. We work like that. So it is like that.
All right. So I truly agree with you. When, as teachers, our passion is to learn all the time. So I agree that whoever is around me, even from a small child, I think I can learn. So they
Yes,
are also
yes.
inspiring me in one of the way, one or the other way.
Yeah.
So that is true. But I would try to share one of the teacher, as you told, I don't want to specify the name, but one of the teacher who were in my primary section, I had wonderful teachers for each of the sections, like primary, secondary, for university level. My favorite teachers and the best qualities they had, which was inspiring, is all different. So I have a quite lot of teachers, if specifically if education is different. But then I would specifically want to mention about a teacher who was in primary, who have taught me in primary, who've been very influential and who have influenced my style of teaching my students also as well. So I think that the main quality she have is when she enter into that class, uh, we would always, as students, the whole class expects her lesson. Nothing special about it. Like she'll come and usually teachers start, yes, open your book. Did your homework yesterday? That is the usual way this teachers start, or with some subject related topics. This teacher, apart from that, she will be giving some of the important proverbs, or sometimes it can be a story, sometimes it can be something, but not related to the subject. So she always start with a general talk where the students are interested into. So we will just hear that she first grabs all the attention. Not even one student will be left behind. It will be pure silence, and we all be listening to that teacher. After that, at the end of the lesson, only we'll come to know that she have already delivered what she wanted. So at the end of the lesson, no student is sitting there who is left behind, who doesn't know about it. If even I was truly speaking at the young age, I was a very shy student. I've been little introvert also, and I don't prefer to come and talk in the lessons. So this here only in this teacher's lesson, it would come naturally. Even the shyest person, including me, including the other set of students who are shy, they come forward with their own opinions and ideas. That is one aspect which I found as very inspiring. That freedom she gives. That, like our parents, the second person whom we can approach, that approachability she gives. That is one aspect. The second aspect which I love about her is she would always not only just stick us onto the class environment, she takes us outside. It can be one day under a tree. She'll just go there and start a talk. And she will, whatever advice she gives, will not just reject it, and we'll update. Yes, miss, I've done this as you told, and my mother liked it. All these feedback she get every day. So she would take to the environment outside, and then she teaches so that our minds are fresh and we are in a different environment where we are interested. Sometimes she take us to the school park, so there we learn. So she was closely making the nature near to us in the learning, so that our fresh minds, like everything is fresh for us. And we had a totally different experience. In my school days, there is no other teacher which I have seen done this. So she is the most inspiring. And whenever she never says or blames a student who is not able to answer. Instead, she would support them and encourage them in front of all others. She never told, you could not answer that. You did not study well. No such question. She says, yes, come here. I'll tell you once again. That is the way in which she's more into moral values than what to say the normal, we say the traditional teacher.
Yes.
I imagined. That's not
Yes.
true. So that is, and I try to do with my students when I teach, but it's very much limited to the school's policies or university policies and the set of rules. So I think in this manner, our line managers or our immediate administration and management should understand that no one has ever told about or spoke about teacher empowerment or teacher passion. We always talk about students' passion, but no one
Yes.
has ever so told that it's actually a give and take. So not only the students' passion or the interest should be taken into notice, the teacher's passion and the way the teacher is comfortable to teach also should be considered in particular time, so that they can contribute to their best with all the. So that is what I think there should be a change, and that is why I always seek for that level of education for
Yes.
truly
Very
right our students.
Yes, it's very true. And as you use the word empowerment, I just that's very important. Actually, in the present times, we have to understand that teachers have to be really empowered. The reason being that nobody else is so close to students as teachers. So their needs, their requirements, the gaps that have to be filled in the education, that transfer of learning, can only be best understood by the teacher. So teachers should be involved in the policy making, in the decision making process of institutions, and that is very important, because otherwise there will be a big gap or a disconnect between what the institutions might be looking for, the good things, good changes they want, but again because of this lack of empowerment, they will not achieve those results in the way they are really expecting. And that is the reason why this empowerment is very important as far as teachers are concerned.
Each
Yes.
teacher is different and unique in their own style. So
Yes.
there is no specific teaching style a teacher should follow. Although there can be rules, yes, this and all things should be covered, and this is the way it should be. But the what that we also need as teachers the encouragement, to do what or take our teaching into a different level if we are interested.
No, every faculty has a own style.
Yeah.
So this has to be understood, because that is the way forward. And as far as empowerment is concerned, yes, government has a lot of role to play there, because again this social security aspect is there, and then creating this supportive environment. Because,
and also I need to refer to this one factor, that maybe not all the teachers would be willing also. Some like as per their own personalities and nature, some teachers might be would like to be more dependent. some teachers would like to be more independent in their teaching. So these
Yeah, yeah.
factors also should be considered while a specific task is provided. For
Yes,
the teacher.
interested. Yes, very true, very true.
Yeah. So I think we'll move on to the next
Please, please.
topic for discussion. What makes you most optimistic about the future of education and why?
Divya, the thing is this, I'm very optimistic about education because of the changes that are now being seen, the visible changes that are being seen at the top levels, at the government level, at the bureaucratic level, especially in India, a lot of new changes are coming. Even the government's new education policy, national policy on education, is also bringing a lot of changes to the existing system of education and making it more relevant rather than merely going for rote learning. So that is quite encouraging. That is one thing. Then post pandemic, the adaptation of technology into the education field, that is something which is giving a lot of hope nowadays, because education can now reach to the deepest corners of the country, where a lot of people who cannot afford many such infrastructure, etc. Still, we can reach them because of this availability of online learning and all. There can be hubs where people can learn. There can be some arrangements at the grassroots levels also where people can learn. So that is quite good because of the changes that are happening. Apart from that, education has transcended the time and space barriers. So that is another thing which is very good, because today you can learn from anywhere, from any place. You can get international qualifications. So borders are not an issue now. So that is quite an optimistic development, and we can actually be very hopeful that we can have better exposure to world education, the global education, which is quite different. Even the Western education, which is quite different when you compare it to the existing education system that we follow. So a lot of opportunity to learn and unlearn and relearn and upskill ourselves. So such opportunities are, yeah. So such opportunities are coming. Apart from that, a new trend or development that is that interested me is micro learn or rapid learn. Very important, and I use it a lot in LinkedIn Learning. If you have gone and done courses in LinkedIn, yeah. So small courses, 1 hour, 2 hours. Actually, I only need that much, because if I have a job which I want to accomplish, I don't have the skill. I just go and learn a course immediately and learn the skills and just apply it immediately. So micro learning and rapid learning are things that will be, you will see a lot of such platforms coming up. So, and we also try to adapt those ideas into our classroom settings, because we know that people don't have much attention span. So we also try to reduce our resources, our content based on these ideas, so that quickly we can give the idea to the students and they can immediately start using them and improve their skills. So I think that is the reason why all these new changes that we are seeing around makes me very hopeful about what are the things to come. And because being a learner myself, I'm always interested in these things, and that makes me very optimistic about this education scenario, not only for teachers but also for students and the real stakeholders, the parents also. They will all benefit in the coming days through these changes that we are witnessing in the education sector.
Yes, you have rightly told all the points that only I need to add on certain things. As from what you shared, I could read that as a digital learning have emerged, the time we need to spend on digital space, which matters the health. Health, we have to have so many health impacts as well. So the first thing they can do is be specific to the industrial skills required. Be much specific where they need to reduce the content of curriculum so that the learners and the teachers can collaborate in a very good way in order to enhance education. So when added to your points on the future of education, I would like to add this on, considering all this, along with the digital security. It's digital security is not just a matter of industries like we hear hacking and all that. It's also matters which is happening and can
Yes.
happen even in the online platforms. So even that needs to have
Be addressed. Very
monitored,
true.
because lots
Yes.
of such things happen, and I've been encountered with that as well.
Yes. Yes.
The government needs to take now actions on monitoring the digital platforms and how to be more getting secured to the for the teachers to deliver properly their lessons.
Yes.
And apart from that, I'm very much thankful for the rewired sessions, this talk, where they have given us a chance to talk. Normally, we don't get a chance to talk like this, to express our ideas. Our people who never reach us. We are not getting any option to reach out with our thoughts. So this is one of the greatest platform. This, of course, let us make a change in the future generation where everyone have shared their insights, which is not actually heard in all the platforms. Dr. Raghu Pradeep Nayak, do you feel, is there any more insights which you can share with the Rewired talks?
Yes, yes, sure, Divya. Certain other points that I would like to mention is that, see, for sustainable education, for the long term, sustainable education can only be achieved. One thing is that this learning outcome, enhanced learning outcome has to be there amongst the learners. And again, as we have discussed, employability. Now, these are the two things that education has to ultimately deliver. Though we have mentioned the other aspects of education, like character building and so many other things. But what is required is the learning outcome has to be, there should be some, gainful outcome which the students will be experiencing out of the learning. So whatever techniques, whatever tools, whatever technology that we will be using should facilitate that. So that is what I would say is the most important goal of modern education. Plus, yes, employability. So to help people have employment. But again, in the existing models that have been discussed by us earlier, unless and until the relevance of industry and the requirements of industry, they come in and they are part of the curriculum or they are in focus when curriculum is being built at the academic level. The level of change that we are expecting from the modern education may not be achieved as well as possible. So that is one thing. So these two important areas have to be addressed by whoever the stakeholders are, maybe at the governmental level, maybe at the institution level. That is the thing. So the outcomes, the learning outcomes have to be there. Otherwise, merely getting, like a factory producing, children with all stuffed with a lot of information will not do. Whether they can really contribute, apply that knowledge. When you look at the Bloom's taxonomy, the application side of knowledge is very important. So merely getting information is not the thing. Information is available now because technology, so much of technology is available. So I think even
the skill of memorizing is becoming obsolete, because you don't have to memorize anything. Everything is there in the computer. You can just click a button and you can get all the things that you want. Even complex arithmetics is not to be really taught in schools, because we can use devices to get the results. Maybe such areas can be rethought of. Should we spend so much time? Even I think at some point we discussed that handwriting. Handwriting. Should we stress so much on handwriting, because we are always on computers? Kids are on computers. So can that time be not utilized for better productive things? Because there was a time when there were no devices and calligraphy was very important. But is that so important now, when we have the keyboard, when we have the devices where we can quickly type and very legibly write? Should we have that? So I think a lot of areas rethinking have to be done, where we can get more, that productive time that is going into education can be channelized to better activities. Okay, so I think some of these areas can be thought of also while making policies, while making decisions at school, college or school or governmental levels. So I think these are some points I would like to mention before we can conclude.
I truly agree with you, and all those are wonderful insights actually from your side. And along with that, I think I would add on a little more on the present curriculum. The present curriculum, as we already discussed many factors of it, actually
Yes.
there is an involvement of knowledge as assessment objective. There is an involvement of understanding knowledge and application, analysis, and evaluation. It's already present there. Already I've discussed how the real life context in a sustainable experience need to be linked. So
Correct.
even though the students are expected to give us an outcome based on their knowledge, analysis, application, and evaluation, they are not able to do it with the limitation of the real experience they have with the environmental factors. That is the true thing. Now, like only in a class, if there is 30 students or 60 students, only a few who is really talented to learn fast and who's really studious can get in that knowledge, application, analysis, and that too is from the question papers. They sit and learn the previous question papers and how it should be answered. So it's just a methodological learning rather than creative learning. So here,
Right.
even though these aspects, when we ask a student without any support of materials, if we ask a student, we will be not, it's true that we'll not be excited. They'll be maximum knowing the knowledge, and maybe they'll be giving us an example more. That is application. But analysis and evaluation, as it's not much clear to them, they are still lacking. So a 50, or at least I feel a 75% of this evaluation, understanding, and application and all can be analyzing and all can be increased if, as you told, as we discussed, when we can link it with the public or private industries through government organizations with their policies and support.
Very true. Very,
So that would make a big difference.
very true. Very true.
Imagine you give a talk at Rewired in front of thousands of people. What message on reimaging education would you share?
Yes, Divya, the thing is that my message, after such a interesting conversation we just had, about education and so many inputs we have discussed. So let me put everything, very briefly. How can we reimage education in the coming days, and particularly after the pandemic, when so much of talk has created regarding online learning and all those things. One important thing is that any reimaging education can only be possible if we look into the redesigning of curriculum, because redesigning of curriculum, making it industry relevant, making it relevant for our existence on this planet, That is the most important thing, where partnership with government is very important, whereas we were also discussing that some immersion programs should be there, where faculties or even maybe students can actually visit in industry, and they can actually learn the real things which the people in industry want. So redesigning curriculum is a big challenge, and this educationists or any stakeholder should take very seriously. Apart from that, we have also understood that the digital infrastructure has to be overhauled. The education system should be revamped because of the new realities and because of the reach that we have to get, because otherwise we will have many people, who will not be able to access this level of open education, which will not be possible. And still there will be a lot of gap between the people who have the access and who do not have the access. So again, infrastructure building, where government and private partnership will do wonders. Apart from the support that is to be given by the institutions and universities themselves, that is another thing which has to go in the new education, policies or new education that we are looking for. Another thing that this pandemic has created, or this situation scenario has created, is that the classrooms are now everywhere. Now anybody can study from anywhere. Education is so much open. If the devices, if the tools, if the right tools, devices are available, you can learn from anywhere. One thing which is lacking, though we have talked about empowering teachers, we don't talk much about empowering students. And one area where students can be empowered is where they can decide about how they study. They can decide about the schedule. Instead of following some schedules, if the students are also having the capacity to decide when to study, where to study and how to study, and all those freedoms can be given to the students and make them more empowered, that will really really give true meaning to this freedom of education that we are talking about. So not only empowering teachers but also empowering students, because I have been experiencing that, where we give self-paced learning activities can be done by them on their own, etc., at their own time. So deadlines are avoided because of these new circumstances. So that could be a way education can be rethought of. Apart from that, as we have also discussed about grading, competency-based approach to assessment should be introduced rather than grades and test scores. These can be avoided. So competency-based approach for assessment can be brought about, and the education system can be changed that way. Apart from that, one very important observation that I would like to make is about parents, because parents, they have been supporting children in these times, but actually many of the parents are groping in the darkness because they don't have any training, they don't have any support, though they want to support their children, or how they don't have the technology. So the usual way of parents supporting schools can now change the other way also, where schools should support parents to help them, help their children who are at home using these technologies. So there should be some support given to parents in the coming days, where parents can be trained, maybe some softwares can be used to connect parents and the schools, and parents can also be very important stakeholders in the growth of their children. So, so that one aspect, because this reality has only dawned now, because previously parents would leave children to school, and it's school's responsibility. But when this online learning started, most of these assignments, everything goes to the children at home, and they are sitting at home, and parents find it difficult to support them. So in this scenario, uh, helping parents getting aware about these technologies that schools or colleges are using and supporting the children, that would be a great thing. So I think all these are some of the things that our Rewired community they can look into, and even better ideas than these can be brought in, because these fusion of ideas will always bring in better and newer ideas for the next generations that we are trying to mold, so that they can all we can all grow together, and for generations these the impact of such revolutionary changes in the education sector can be felt. The rippling effect can be felt throughout. Okay, so that is the thing. That is how I would like to mention before I conclude. So I think the educationists who are involved in all these activities, the government who's so serious about understanding about education, and who has created such a beautiful platform where so much of inputs are coming in, they will definitely find something useful, which can be practically applied in the coming days, and quickly transformed into a new revolution in education.
That was a bombarding of insights, actually. As you have mentioned about student empowerment, um, I've been very humbled to receive an award. It's an appreciation from my present school, empowering the students on digital platforms. So whenever I started
Congratulations.
transition, yeah, during in the academic area. So during this transition, I could wonderfully build in the digital skills among my own students, where I make them come up with the digital, using the digital platforms to come up with activities, and being given the whole freedom. So it starts from making videos, using the Padlets, using the gaming also for learning, and also been creating their own websites. So I've been like successful in a way that I'm very grateful also that I could do that. And rather than this, if I'm getting a chance to talk on Rewired session, I would of course talk on the relevance of global integration between the schools, universities, public and private sector companies, government and countries in order to build a global education system. And the second one I would like to deliver is the possibilities of shifting the global education linked with projected real life context learning to sustainable real life experience with competency based grading system. I'm very privileged to host Rewire Talks. Thanks to Dr. Raghu Pradeep Nayan in sharing your valuable insights on this platform with an hope to build the future of a competency-based sustainable education. Thanks to Dubai Cares in partnership with Rewired, the new global platform on education, and providing an opportunity to participate in Rewired Talks, a unique initiative that aims to amplify voices that are usually not heard in discussions on the future of the education. This is the greatest optimism we see in rewiring and reshaping the global education hand in hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Divya. Thank you for this opportunity. Thanks a lot. Rewired Talks, because education is everyone's business.